Hello and welcome to this video, an Excel primer to help you get up and running with using Excel. So if you launch Excel, the first thing that'll pop up are some pre-built common tools, uh, objects that you might create in Excel, and you will learn to appreciate that Excel is an incredibly powerful and useful product tool for doing a number of things. We're just going to start with this blank workbook though. You can do a number of other things, calendars and sales forecasts and what if analysis. But for this primer video, I'm assuming that you've never used Excel, and if you have used Excel, we'll reinforce the things you already know and maybe learn some things along the way. So go ahead and follow along, pull up Excel on your machine if you want to, and as you're watching the video, toggle between these two. The way Excel works, as you can see, is we have a collection of rows and columns. The columns are letters A, B, C, and D, just like the alphabet. And the numbers are 1, 2, 3, and 4, just like a ruler. And the rows and columns intersect into something called a cell. So the cells are identified by the column and the row combination. So we can see this cell is column D, and I look to the left, it's row 5. So the name for this is D5, that's cell D5. And the name of the cell appears in this little window just above the row column grid. Also just above the row column grid, there's a place for formulas and functions. Whatever I type in the cell will appear here, and whatever I type here will appear in the cell. Right? So if I type testing in the text box, I get testing down here. And if I type another test in cell D6, then it shows me when D6 is selected that I'm getting another test. If I go back to D5, if I were to change to D5, whoops, press enter there. If I were to change to, I think I could type D5 in here directly. So if I type in D5 directly, I get, it shows me D5 is testing, and if I click on D6, it shows me D6 is another test. So each cell can contain text, but text is not what's most interesting about Excel. Each row column gives us a cell, and cells can contain text, which can be descriptive. Cells can contain numbers like 30 and 10. And when I click on F7, I see that it contains a 30, and I click on F8, I see it contains a 10. So what I might do here is I'm going to say hours worked, and I'm going to say pay rate. So the labels and the numbers work together in any kind of a document so that you know what the numbers are talking about. So this person worked 30 hours this week at a $10 pay rate. You'll notice that the hours worked, the text in the cell E7 is hours worked, but it doesn't show up completely. You can resize these cells as necessary. You can automatically resize the cell, the column. You can automatically resize all the cells in a column by right-clicking on that column. So column E is not wide enough for me to see the text. If I right-click, if I move the cursor to the right of column E between E and F, and I just double-click on that space, it'll auto-fit the entire column. So that if I had 100 or 1,000 pieces of data, text in column E, or even numbers, whatever it was, it'll make the column wide enough. Excel will make the column wide enough to see all that label. So that's really nice. So we have labels and we have numbers that we can place inside of cells. We can also format. So in the Home tab, I can take whatever this text is and I can change the font type to be something else, and I can change the font size to be something else, and I can change the font color to be something else. So all the things that I'm used to doing, I change the font background to be something else. All the things that I'm used to doing from a formatting perspective, I can do in Excel. But this isn't what makes Excel so interesting. That yellow font doesn't look good. Let me pick something else. Okay. What makes Excel interesting is the ability to do something else in a cell called formulas and functions. So if this person worked 30 hours at $10 an hour and I wanted to know what the pay due, the amount of pay due for this person was, I can actually do that math in my head. If you work 30 hours this week at $10 an hour, I know the answer is 300, and I could type a 300 in cell F10, and that sheet would be correct. Now, my formatting doesn't look nice. Let me take this, let me highlight all these and make them all 12 point with a standard font and a dark blue background. Okay, oops, and let me get rid of the have no fill as the background there. So that looks and makes sense. And I can format, I can also do the home tab, I can do some formatting, put dollar signs in some of these things. Pay rate is a dollar sign. All right. But still, nothing that I've shown you so far is impressive, or I don't think it is. It's just a nice structured way of putting in data with labels and formatting them. But this idea that I had to do the math by myself in my own head, that's not the strength, that's prone to human error. What if I said instead of $30, what if I had another person over here that worked 17.25 hours, right? 17 and a quarter hours, and they were getting paid 11.25 an hour. What's that person's pay rate, right? That's not as easy to do in my head as 10 times 30. This is where Excel comes into play, because I don't have to type these in as a 300. I can type a formula into this cell here. And the way formulas and functions work, and this is the power of Excel, is you get Excel to do the work. And you tell Excel you're going to do the work by typing an equals sign. Now I'm going to make this a little, in the bottom right-hand corner, whoops, let me escape, come down to the bottom right-hand corner here, and there's a zoom. Let me zoom in here even more so that you can see this better. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in to 170% or something, and just make this easier to see as I'm working. To get Excel's attention, you type an equal sign. That tells Excel, hey Excel, pay attention, right? I need Excel to do work. And specifically, I want Excel to multiply this value in cell F7 times this value in cell F8. So I say F7, I can type F7, or I can click on the cell and it'll type the cell that I clicked for me automatically, F7, times, which is an asterisk, or shift 8 is the symbol for times, for multiplication. And then I could type F8, or I can click on F8, either way, and it'll, if I click, it'll type it for me automatically. So I've got equal sign that's telling Excel, do some work for me, and then specifically multiply F7 times F8. I press enter, and I get the same answer, 300, but notice what's up here. It's not hard-coded 300, it's the formula F7 times F8. So if I change this value from 30 to 35, and press enter, it automatically changes my calculated value. If I had entered that manually by hand, it would still be 300, and I would have a problem I would have an inconsistency in my data. And the nice thing about this is I can do it over here as well. Multiply this value times this value, and what is 17 and a quarter hours at 11.25 an hour? I don't know, but Excel does, and it's $194 and 0.625. And that 4 decimal places, if I go under the formatting, home, and the number tab, I can click the dollar sign to get currency formatting, and it'll give me 2 decimal places rounded to the nearest penny, and it'll give me commas as necessary if I have over 1,000 or over 1,000,000 and so on. So Excel will do the formulas and functions for us. It will also do, so this is an example of a formula, something times something, plus, minus, multiplication, division. Any of your math operators is a formula. What would a function be? Functions are pre-built into Excel. And to show you functions, I'm going to close this little file up. We pulled this up just as a, just to start from scratch, so there's nothing special here. That was just pulling up an Excel file. I'm not even going to bother saving it. But if you get this file, I've got an Excel primer that you may have access to depending on where you're watching this video or not. If you have access to this file, if it's available to you in Blackboard, for example, if you're watching this as part of your class and this file is available in Blackboard, go ahead and you can, if you're going to turn this in, when you're done, change the name of this to be Excel Primer and then your name. And the way you change the name of a file, the easiest way is to click on the file and press the F2 key, and the F2 key will highlight the file name, and you can then just use the arrow keys to, whoops, this caps key lock. You can then use the arrows key to put your name in there instead of whatever it said as the file name. If you don't want to use F2, you can also click once to highlight the file name, and then click again, and using the mouse, you can highlight and edit and change. So take this file if you have access to it, and if you don't, you can kind of follow along here. And what this file has in it is some pre-populated data. And I want to show you what I was talking about before regarding formulas and functions. So on this t-shirt cells, which should be the default one that pops up, if it's not, click on it. We'll see these other two tabs in just a minute. An Excel file, oops, that wasn't quite centered. An Excel file contains worksheets. So the file itself is called a workbook. And this workbook, which is named Excel Primer and then my name, this workbook has 3 worksheets in it: t-shirt sales and payroll and M&Ms. We'll get to the other two in a second, looking at t-shirt sales. You can see there's some formatting going on. I can see it's got 20-point font here. I can see it's got a blue back color here. This has a yellow back color. So the formatting, you can see how it might make the page, the data, easier to see. And I can see that I have 6 days of the week, Monday through Saturday, so 1 week worth of data on t-shirt sales, 5 different size t-shirts, small, extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. And I got some data here, and I want to add these up. Now, if this wasn't a tool like Excel, I would have to add this data up. The extra small t-shirt sales for this week, I'd have to add 62 plus 64 in my head, which is like 126, plus 72, which is like 178, plus 73. 198 plus 73. Let's see, 198 plus 73, that's 260, carry the 1, 271. 271 plus 66, that's going to be, let's see, 330. 7, and 337 plus 62 is going to be 399, maybe? I don't know. Right? So maybe it's 399. Phew! Right? How confident are you that I did that math correctly? I'm not very confident. I'm not sure if you're very confident. And I could do it again for this next set of numbers, and the next set of numbers, and the next set of numbers. And you should say, boy, that seems inefficient, buddy. I think you're doing it wrong. You should use a hand calculator. Well, I could still make a mistake with a hand calculator. What I really should do is, instead of me typing in the constant 399, I should let Excel do the work. And remember, the way we want Excel to do the work is we say equals. Equals gets Excel's attention. It says, Excel, I want you to do the work for me. And specifically, I want it to add this value plus 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 this value. So I could do B4 plus C4 plus D4 plus E4 plus F4 plus G4. That would be a formula. Or I could do a function. Functions are pre-named functions that have specific functionality associated with them. So sum is a common function. And even as I type sum, you'll notice there are a lot of versions of sum in Excel. Right? There's the classic sum, which is what we're going to use and what you want most of the time. But there's also a sum if, and sum if s, and sum product, and sum squared, and sum x2 m y2, and holy cow, that's a lot of sum functions. You don't need to know the functions that you're not going to use. But here's the cool thing about Excel. If you have a college textbook, and your college textbook has a formula in that college textbook, Excel probably knows that formula. So if you're taking an accounting class, you're taking a finance class, you're taking some statistics class, you're in some science class or engineering class, and you need a formula that's a standard formula in a college textbook, Excel probably knows that formula. All I want to do is I just want to add 5 numbers. I'm just using good old common sum. So equals, to get Excel's attention, the name of the function, sum. And then, using parentheses, we specify what are called the arguments, or the data that the function is going to apply to. And I could do these one at a time, or I could select them as a group called a range. So I'm pressing on B4 and holding the mouse down and dragging across to G4 and then letting go of the mouse. And the way it types that, you'll notice it's B4 colon G4. That is called a range, which is a rectangle where you specify the upper left cell in the rectangle and the lower right cell in the rectangle. And a range can be a horizontal range like we have here. It can be a vertical range, and it can be a box range that includes both rows, multiple rows, and multiple columns. I don't have to put the right parenthesis in to close the parameters, but if I don't, Excel will add it for me. I'm going to add it specifically, press enter, and oh, look at that. I was actually right. I didn't know I was, but my math was right. It was a 399. That was the sum. So it shows up in H4 as 399, but it shows up here in the edit window as what's really typing there is in real time, take whatever these values are in this range and sum them up. So what's neat about that is if I change this 62 to a 100, my 399 changes to a 437. So all this data is being edited in real time. And if up here I have the undo, which is common in most applications, not just Excel. If I want to undo what I just did, I'll click that and I go back to the value it had before, which takes my formula back to 399. So formulas and functions, the ability to have Excel do work for you. That's the power of Excel, especially when it comes to working with numbers. So I've got this formula, and I want to do the same thing here and here and here and here to get the small, medium, large, and extra large. So let me show you something else Excel does that's nice. Once I have the formula typed in, I've got the value I want there, 399, or whatever the correct sum is. And on the selected cell, there's a little handle on the lower right-hand corner. If you grab that handle, it's called a fill handle, you can pull it down and it will fill all the cells in the range you highlight, in the fill highlight, copying your formula for you. So now I'm going to hit the escape key, or I'm going to click on an empty cell here to unhighlight and go back and highlight just that 537. And even though it says 537, the actual cell contents is a formula. And even though this says 584, the actual contents is a formula. And if I double click on the cell, it'll show me what it is so that I can edit it if I wanted to change it. I don't want to change it. I'm going to hit escape to get out of that edit mode. Right? Double click takes me into edit mode. I can see what the cell actually contains, not what it's displaying. Escape key, escape, takes me out of it. If I don't escape and I click over here, you see it's kind of editing, and I don't want that. Anytime I'm in some state I don't want, escape will get me out of that edit mode. So, do you think you can sum up the values? Click on cell B9 and sum up all the Monday sales. Can you do that? Well, you want Excel to do the work for you, so you get Excel's attention. How? Correct, by pressing equals. And then you use the function name that sums up a bunch of cells. In this case, it's sum. Left parenthesis to specify the arguments you're going to select. Drag and release. Press drag and release to select the cells to be the function applies to, and don't have to press the right parenthesis, but I'm going to, and then enter. Okay. Use the fill handle. Now that I have 437, which I can see in edit mode is the sum of all those, I'll escape out of edit mode. Now that I have 437, I'm going to use the fill handle, copy that over through Sunday, boom. Through Saturday, boom. What about my weekly total? So now in cell H10, I want to get the weekly total here. Well, that's the sum of that little highlight box. I think that'll go away if I hit the escape key. No, it's not going away. Excel's trying to be helpful here. It's kind of like almost like the paperclip used to be something. If I want that to go away, it's kind of talking about the last thing I did. If I go over to a blank cell here and just press space, now not any data, just I'm editing a space, and it can even backspace and escape out of it. Oops, I guess I have to actually hit space and press enter. If I actually do something in a blank cell, it gets rid of that little pop-up from previous edits. It was asking me if I wanted to copy it or format it or do some things. My goal here is to go to H10 and get the total for all the shirts for the week. And I can do this in 3 different ways. I can get the sum of this total, which will give me the value 2633. Or I can get the sum of this total, which will give me the same value, 2633. Or I can get the sum of the data in yellow, Monday through Saturday, extra small through extra large, without using any sum function. Just sum up all those, let's see, 6 times 5, all those 30 values, and I press enter, and I get 2633. All right, so I'm getting the same answer in all those. Now the 2633, first of all, the formatting doesn't look good. I don't like black font on a dark red background. But remember, we can change formatting just by going under the Home tab, and we've got our regular old font editing things here. So here's my font color, and instead of using dark black on dark red, I'm going to use white on dark red or something else. Right? So the formatting, it's funny with Excel, the formatting is what people see first, and it's like what people are really impressed with. Oh, I really like the looks of your t-shirt cells. You know, the colors are very fancy. But that's not, the look isn't what matters. What matters is I'm using formulas and functions to do all my work for me. So again, this 2633, if this changes to 100, my 2633 is now 2671. And the 399 changed, and whatever that value was changed. I don't remember what it was. And I'm going to undo that again just to get back to known values here. So that's already cool stuff. Let me show you the biggest problem people have working with Excel. Are you ready? Pay attention, right? I'm about to show you where people get messed up using Excel. And if you pay attention to these next 2-3 minutes, you're going to know more about Excel than most people who use Excel, even who use Excel on a regular basis, because they don't understand what we're about to look at. I want to calculate the percentage. 399 out of 2633. I want to calculate that percentage right here. Now I know that the way to calculate a percentage is the small part divided by the big part, right? The small divided by the whole. And I want Excel to do the work, so I get Excel's attention by saying equals. And then it's just a simple formula, this divided by this. Okay? So that gives me a percentage. It's 15% in decimal format, 0.15, blah, 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 blah. And I could format that percentage under the Home tab in the number group. There's a percent symbol. And I can make it 15%, and I could make it, to have 1 or 2 decimal places if I wanted to. So it's 15.15. Okay? And you might think that was pretty easy. I want to get the percentage for small, medium, large, and extra large. I'm going to copy this formula down, and it doesn't work. Wah, wah, wah. Why did this not work? It seems like the same thing we've been doing before. Well, let's understand why this didn't work. I'm going to undo the copy I just did, so I'm just down to my formula here. What's wrong with this formula? H4 divided by H10. That's the formula for calculating a percentage. Why doesn't it work? Well, it does work here. Why doesn't it copy? So let me copy down just one cell. Again, it doesn't work. Let's see why this isn't working. So if I double click on the formula that I copied down, I'm now doing H5, the 537, divided by H11. There's no data in H11. So I've got divide by 0, which is divide by 0 error. Why did it copy from H10 to H11? Well, actually, it's doing, when you copy, it assumes that as the formula goes down or the formula goes to the right, it assumes that you want all the references to also go down and to the right. And usually that's the case. Most of the times, 4 times out of 5, 9 times out of 10, when you copy a formula, as you copy down, you want the all the formula variables to go down. And as you copy to the right, you want all the formula variables to go to the right. I do want the 399 to become 537, right? And as I copy that down, I do want the 537 to become 584, right? I do want the H4 to become H5 to become H6. But I don't want the 2633 H10. I don't want it to change. So let me highlight and delete the things I don't want. So those are all now empty. I can see they're empty because there's nothing at this point and there's nothing in the cell. So I've deleted all those. I'm back to just my formula, H4 divided by H10. As I copy down, I want H4 to become H5 and H5 to become H6. I do want the first value to change. But the H10 is kind of this total that is a fixed value. I was editing there. I clicked on it and it pulled up weird. Remember, you can always hit escape to get out of edit if something weird is going on. H4 divided by H10. This H10 is a value that's fixed. As I copy, it stays fixed. So to tell Excel that H10 is a special fixed value, we do something called absolute reference. And there's a shortcut key for this, the F4 key, that when I have H10 highlighted anywhere before the H, between the H and 10, or right after touching the 10, right? If I'm touching H10, I can do a highlight key, a shortcut key, the F4 key, and it will create an absolute reference for me. $ in front of the column H, $ in front of the row 10. Or I could have typed that in manually, right? I also have the option of manually typing in a $ and a $. So F4 key will do it for us automatically, or manually type it in. The $ means this cell is fixed. It's fixed right there. It does not move as we're doing the copy. So now I press enter with the H $10, and as I copy it down, it works. And if I look at any one of these values, I'll see that they all say H10. The H10 is fixed in the formula. It's a fixed reference. But H4 becomes H5, becomes H6, becomes H7, becomes H8. The relative references are copying down as I copy down, which is what you want by normal default. But when a cell is a fixed cell and it has a special value, a sales tax, a total, a constant of some type, and I want to use that fixed cell in a formula, you're going to need to use an absolute reference on the fixed cell. Okay? So, okay, that said that was going to take like 2 minutes. It actually took longer than 2 minutes. But it was a big, big deal. Understanding absolute references is a big, big deal. I'm going to make this data smaller by using the zoom here. So I've still got my t-shirt sales with my totals and my percentages, and all's working well. Formulas and functions, that's reason number 1 that Excel's powerful. The reason number 2 that Excel's powerful is because it does charts and graphs. So for example, if I just create a box that highlights all this data, including the dates Monday through Saturday, and the shirt sizes, extra small to extra large. I'm selecting all that data, the labels and the data in yellow. Go under the Insert tab, go under Recommended Charts, and it says, here's some charts that you might want to create based on your selected data. And line charts are good for showing trends over time. So this would show me my t-shirt sales over the week, how they were rising and falling. Bar charts are good for side-by-side comparisons, so I can look at Monday sales for each of the shirts and see which ones did better. Pie charts are good for parts of a whole, but it doesn't pull up a pie chart for me because it knows the data I have selected and says that usually people don't look at pie charts for the data you have selected. Let's do this clustered column. Let's do the default clustered column here. Okay. And it's creating this chart for me that's visualizing my t-shirt sales for the whole thing. And I can resize this chart. Whatever size I make this chart, it'll automatically make it look and fit good. I can change the chart title. Demonstration of chart creation, right? Or whatever you want to call that. I can see I've got my labels down here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, with colors of extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large for each of those colors there. And when the chart is selected, there is a Chart Tools option that has two characteristics, design and format, two subtabs. And the design tab, and again, to see this Chart Tools, you have to have the chart selected. If the chart's not selected, if I'm just selecting the data or white space, there is no Chart Tools. But when I click the Chart Tools tab, extra tab appears. That's where the design and the format are. And in the design, there are these pre-formatted ways of looking at this same clustered column chart. And you can just flip through these and you might find one or two that you like. And on the drop-down list, I can see ones that aren't on my original list. So there's lots of ways of looking at this chart. And if I want to go under the, again, when the chart's selected, there's a quick layout that gives me more options here of looking at common charts. And there's a chart element where I can go through each particular aspect of the chart, the axis. Do I want there to be a primary axis or not? Do I want there to be a vertical axis or not? Do I want the chart to have a title, right? So we have a title, it's above the chart. If I said overlay chart, you can see that the demonstration of chart creation is overlaid. If I say none, the title goes away. Data labels, data table. So you have complete control over the look and feel of your chart to customize it, but you don't have to do much. You can just pick one of these pre-existing label formats that you think looks pretty good. And then there's my chart. So that's very cool. And by the way, you can take this chart that you have created. If you have a chart that you like, you can copy it. So I'll right click and say copy. And then I can pull up like Microsoft Word or something and pull up a blank file here in Microsoft Word. And let me get this a little smaller here. And I can go under paste. And I have two ways of pasting. I recommend that you go under the paste and you select on the far right the picture option. Because selecting the picture option gives you a graphic of the chart. I'm going to make this a little smaller here because it's too big. It gives you a graphic of the chart that looks exactly like the way it looked in Excel. Right? It uses the exact color and everything else is exactly the same. So that's what I usually like to do. If you just paste generically, it will give you, it'll look slightly different. Let me make this again. Whoops. I don't know if I can change the. And see, it's doing it in real time. That you can see they look a little bit different. The formatting is going to be a little bit different, and this chart is still a real-time chart. So if I change Monday from 62 to 1,000, I'm going to make the Monday sales of extra small really large. Notice that my chart changed in real time to reflect that I had 1,000 sales of extra small on Monday, right? And everything else scales down. If I go to my Word document and look what happens in my Word document. Oh, it didn't change it. There's a way to paste. If you don't paste as a chart, one of our paste options is that it will paste it link. There it is. Keep source link formatting data. So if I have it pasted, if I paste it in a linked format data, even in my Word document, the chart was changed. You typically don't want that to happen. You typically, when you copy an image over to Word or to PowerPoint, you don't want it to be linked still to that Excel file, because if the Excel file data changes, your presentation is going to change, it's going to mess it up. If the Excel file isn't visible, there's going to be a problem. So it's nice that you can have a image that you like, right click, copy it, and then paste it into your PowerPoint presentation as an image, paste it into your Word document as an image, and it'll look exactly like this. So one more example here about creating charts and images. Let's do this. Let's select the shirt sizes, extra small to extra large, press the Control key to do a multi-select and select these percentages, and then let go of the Control key. Now, if I did that kind of quickly. I'll repeat it here. I'm going to do what's called a multi-select. So if I select these, I'm just clicking in white space here. These 4 cells, and then I come over here and collect these 4 cells, it doesn't highlight them at the same time. You can see that's going on there. If I want to do a multi-select, what you do is you select, and then you hold the control key down and select again. That gives you a multi-select. So you have 2 ranges selected at the same time. And if I did something to those ranges, it would apply to both of them. Right? So this is a multi-select. I have multiple cells selected at the same time, and I'm updating all of them at the same time. So I want to multi-select this data and this data, and I can't select them both at the same time unless I do a multi-select. So I'll select the shirt sizes, press the control key, and with control held, I can do a multi-select. So now I have shirt sizes and percentages selected at the same time. Go under the insert, go under the recommended charts, and notice I'm getting different recommended charts. Excel is smart enough to know that based on the data selected, what it is you might be wanting to do. So I've got a pie chart here. Now if I go under all charts, I can see that I have all my column charts, and here's some common column charts, but there's really 6 or 7 different main categories of column charts. There's line charts and lots of different options for line charts. Pie charts, there's different options for pie charts, a donut chart, the 3D pie chart, the regular pie chart. I'll do the 3D pie chart here. And it creates for me, in real time, it's created this pie chart showing me my t-shirt sales percentages. Extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. And as before, when the chart is selected, I can go under the chart tools that appears, and I can select some different styles that I might like. I can go through each one of these and make changes over here on the chart elements. And another cool thing about the chart, if I select the chart, click once, it selects the entire chart. Click a pie slice, once it's selected, I can select an individual pie slice, and I can pull it out on an exploding pie chart if I wanted to. So if you play around with these charts just a little bit, you'll see, 1, they're incredibly easy to create, and 2, they look great. If you have data that you want to make a chart out of, you should use Excel. Excel creates line charts, bar charts, pie charts. It visualizes data better than anything. It's super easy to use, and it's super intuitive if you play with it a little bit. Okay, so formulas, functions, absolute reference. People get messed up on absolute reference. Using the $H, $10, putting dollar signs in front of the rows and columns. If you're going to copy and you want a cell to stay fixed, like this cell, absolute reference, so that as I copy down, I keep referencing H10, and then charts. So let's just click on this next tab, payroll tab. It doesn't fit on my screen. It may or may not on yours, depending how big your window is. So here we got some data, and we're going to go through this really quickly now. I've taught you what you need to know about Excel. Let's just reinforce it. Here I've got 12 people, 12 employees, hours they've worked, the pay rate they make per hour, and we need to fill in this pay chart. We need to figure out their gross pay, which is hours times rate, just flat. And then there's federal tax, state tax, local tax, FICA tax, net pay, which is your gross minus your deductions. And we can see here that the percentage for federal tax is, for our calculation purposes, 22%. State tax is 5.8, local tax is 3.35, and FICA is 7.65. If I had to fill this out by hand with a calculator, 1, it would take a long time. 2, I would probably make a mistake. And 3, it would be boring, lousy work. Luckily, Excel makes this easy to do, and I'll show you how easy this is. Gross pay, I know that gross pay is equals, get Excel to do the work, hours times rate. Okay. So it's got $300 for this person, and I can copy using the fill handle, copy that down for everybody. Is that right? 50 times 10 is 500, 30 times 10 is 300. I'm not going to do overtime pay right now because I don't want to get into that. It's a little more complicated than I want for this primer video, But if I wanted to calculate overtime because this person worked more than 40 hours, we could do overtime as well. If that's something you'd like to see, we can make a separate video for the overtime pay and using if statements within Excel. But this primer video, we're not getting into that complexity. I just want you to understand formulas, functions, and charts with Excel and absolute references. So federal tax. Well, federal tax equals, to get Excel's attention, it's the gross pay times this tax rate, the federal tax rate, 22%. So this person's federal tax is $66. Now, if I copy this down, it's not going to work. Wah, wah, wah. That doesn't look right. Let me undo what I just did by going up here to the undo option at the top. Or I could just select all these values and delete them. Either way, it'd be the same thing. What's wrong with copying this formula? Well, as I copy down, do I want 300 to become 500? Yes. Do I want 300, 500 to become 264? Yes. Do I want 22% to go down as I copy? Do I want it to become federal tax, the label federal? No, I want this 22 to stay 22. So I want cell F4 to always stay F4. And there's a function key for this, and it happens to be the F4 function key, which is a bit ironic since F4 in this particular case is the cell that I want to stay the same. So I can use the shortcut key, make sure that the cell I want in the formula is the one I want to be absolute reference, and hit the F4 key. Or I can manually type in the $ in front of the row and in front of the column. Now, E6 times $F, $4, that means the F4 is going to stay fixed. And as I copy that down, it works the way I want it to. 220 times cell F4. 500 times cell F4. Value 300, right? E17 times the fixed cell reference F4, 22%. When you have a formula, you have a cell that contains a formula that applies to multiple cells, you know you're going to be doing absolute references. Same thing here. Gross pay, 300 times this F8, right? But it won't work if I copy it down. Wah, wah, wah. Let me undo and change this formula to be, and I'll enter it manually this time, $. Right? So I can use the F4 key, or I can manually enter it, and then it copies down just fine. And you can see that I am now filling in this chart very quickly and very intuitively by using or hitting the F4 key. I'm filling this in very quickly with Excel and more accurately than if I was doing this by hand with a calculator. That cell, F4 key to make it an absolute reference, press enter, copy it down, it works great. And then finally, what's our net pay? Well, our net pay is our gross pay minus our deductions. So it's equal to the gross pay, which is this, for this person, gross pay is in cell E6, minus F6, G6, H6, I6. So I could write that a number of ways, but probably the easiest way is to write it as minus the sum of click and hold FGHI, and then right parenthesis. So E6 minus the sum of FGH and I. Right? This person has $183.60 all the way down. And I've filled out the entire sheet for all my employees using Excel in just a minute or two, and all the values are exactly correct. There's no human error when it comes to using a calculator. If there is a human error, it's that I didn't enter a formula correctly, or I didn't type something correctly. But as long as I did my formulas and functions correct, Excel will have all of its calculations. You know, maybe I entered one of these values wrong, or maybe I entered one of these values wrong. So there's still possibly errors, but Excel is not the source of the error. Excel is doing exactly what we tell it to do. That's what machines are good at. If I click on this last worksheet, this is just, I saw this data once and I thought it was interesting. Somebody opened up a bag of, you know, a regular bag of, a personal bag of M&Ms, and they had a little gram scale, and they weighed in grams each of the M&Ms in a 19-ounce bag of M&Ms. The little 60 cents bag you get at the checkout store. And they broke that data up into columns based on the colors of the M&Ms. So there were red M&Ms and orange and yellow and brown and blue and green. And I just kind of think data is interesting, and I would never have thought to analyze the contents of a bag of M&Ms, but this person did. Like, huh, that's interesting. Um, and particularly they gathered the weight in grams for each of the M&Ms, and they're about 1 gram each. This one's over a gram. I think this one's over a gram. Most of them are just under a gram, 0.9. This one's 0.8. Right? So there's a little bit of size variation in the M&Ms. And what do we do with this data? Well, whatever you want. There's not much to do, but one thing we could do is I see that there's only 3 blues and there's 5 greens. There's a lot of browns. I could chart the M&Ms by their colors. Because I've got the weights of each of these, I also have the ability to know how many there are. So I'm going to come down here below the last piece of data, right? So the brown goes all the way down to column 18. So I'm going to come down to column 20. I'm going to skip a blank row there just for visual clarity. I'm going to come down to column 20, row 20, and I'm going to count up how many red M&Ms have data. Or specifically, I'll be more clear, I'm going to count how many cells have data in them underneath the red here. So I need a formula. I need a function, a pre-built function inside of Excel for counting up how many cells have data in them. And I don't know what the function name is going to be that would count how many cells have data, but there's a function built into Excel that will count how many cells in a range have data in them. And I don't know what the name of that function should be that would count the number of cells that have data. What do you think would be a good name for that? Well, count. There's a pre-built function called count. In fact, there's many versions of count, but good old classic count. And it even tells us here in our little hint, counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. So I put left parenthesis, I specify the range. Now I'm going to copy my range all the way down here to 19, even though I know there's no data in 19, because I'm going to copy this across. So I want to be able to get all the numbers there. And sure enough, it says 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I copy this formula across using the fill handle. And I can see I've got 3 blues. I see I got 5 greens. I could count to confirm that's 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, right? Excel will work if we tell it the right formulas and functions. So I've got my data for all my M&Ms. Now I'm going to do a multi-select. I'm going to select the colors, and then I'm going to hold Control and select the numbers. And I'm going to insert. And I'm going to insert specifically a pie chart. So instead of recommended charts, I know I'm doing a pie chart. I can see I've got 3 main options here: 3D pie, donut pie. Which one do I want to do? I'm going to do the 3D pie chart. And I've got versions of the 3D pie chart that are pre-built that I can use. All right. And we'll change the name of this to be contents of M&M bag. This format chart, I hit something to pop that up. I can just close that window back. And as I'm looking at this, I see I've got this pretty neat looking chart here of the contents of my M&Ms. And I've got the red M&Ms and the orange M&Ms and the yellow and the brown and the blue and the green. The thing is, this slice here with the blue background is my red M&Ms. And this slice is my orange M&Ms. So I don't love that part of it. I think my pie chart would be even better if I had the colors that represented the colors of my M&Ms. Well, it's actually really easy to do, to change those background colors. So if you click on the chart is selected. We have the chart tools. And then if you click on the pie or the line or the graph, whatever it is that the chart type is, the entire thing gets selected. And then when the entire thing's selected, if you select a single line or a bar or a pie slice, you've got just that thing selected, just that slice selected. And you can see these, you see these 3 handles on the blue slice there? It's highlighting what's selected. There's no handles around the other colors, it's just the blue. And again, the way I did that, let me go click off of it, click to the white space and click back. Click once to select the chart tools appears. Click the whole pie, anywhere on the pie selects the whole pie. And then when the whole pie is selected, you see all the click handles all the way around the pie slice. Then I click a slice within it and just that single slice is selected. right click and you can change the fill color. So I want red to be red. Same thing, click this pie slice. I can tell I have one pie slice selected because the highlight handles are just that slice. That's the slice for orange, so I'm going to right click, fill color. I'm going to pick orange for orange. This one is yellow. When just that slice is selected, right click, fill yellow. This one is brown, right click, fill brown. I don't really have brown. I'm going to try that. That looks kind of like brown. This one is blue. Lots of blue options here. I don't know what blue looks most like an M&M blue. I think it maybe looks that color. I don't even remember. And the last one here is green. And again, my best guess for the M&M green color is it looks kind of that color green. I don't know. The standard colors and the theme colors don't matter for our purposes in this video. The idea behind a theme color is you can change the themes as part of the style of the page, and it does some things for our purposes. It does make a difference. So now I've got my pie slice of M&M contents, and the red color is represented with a red, represents the red data. Orange color for orange, yellow for yellow, brown for brown, blue for blue, green for green. Okay? And that's kind of neat. If I needed to give a PowerPoint presentation and I needed a slide that showed contents of M&M bags, right? I could use, see, I don't want to do that. That's interesting. As I change these pre-built, I have to go through my colors again a separate time. But if I go into my chart elements, I can change my chart elements to say put the legend to the right or put the legend on the top, and that the chart element changes do not reset the colors. If I change a chart style as a whole, it will reset the colors. And the data labels, I can make the data labels be best fit on the chart. Outside the chart, they're not showing up very well. The center of the chart, the data labels are those percentages there. I don't know why they're not showing up outside the chart, probably because the chart, the colors that I have. But you can play around with it for a little bit if you want to. Best fit, I think, is our best option there. That yellow doesn't help that percent show very well, so let me select and select again and change that to be a different kind of yellow so that the 25% shows up. Little things like that didn't take long at all. I can now take this, I can right click, I can copy it, I can go into PowerPoint, paste it into PowerPoint, be sure to paste it as an image. I can copy here, right click, copy, go into Microsoft Word, paste it as an image. I've got this exact chart in my Word presentation and it looks great. So you can use Excel to do visualization of your data. You can use Excel to do all of your calculations for you quickly and easily. Be sure to use an absolute reference, $sign in front of the row, $sign in front of the column. When you have a cell like this cell, that's one cell that's being used by multiple cells in your equation, as you're copying and pasting. If you're doing this for a grade, save your work. Your file name, make sure your name is in the file name up here across the top, and save your work and send it to me through Blackboard or however it is that your instructions tell me to send the file. Okay. Hope this was useful. Hope you enjoyed seeing how easy it is to use Excel and how awesome it is to use Excel. Have a great day. Good day.